So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to EdConnect's first ever virtual event. It's great to have everyone here, and thank you all for introducing yourselves in the chat. We've got a great panel of volunteer speakers who are going to talk to you about something really important about obviously securing your first teaching job. So EdConnect is a grassroots network for early career teachers, born out of Instagram and now expanding to include teachers from across the world in some cases. My name's Ben. I'm one of the network steering group members. And there's a fantastic team of people behind the scenes who are also monitoring all of our chats and everything. So if you do have any questions, please pop them into the chat. But first, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping and just explain how the event's going to work, and hope that my screen shares now to you all. So, and it has worked my end. So first of all, welcome. And just to put our network into a bit of a perspective, so obviously people sign up as a member for free, and we're open for early career teachers from those who are aspiring to teach right through to the first 5 years of their teaching. And so far we've got 333 members signed up across 7 countries, 144 followers on Twitter, and 803 followers on Instagram, and over 1,358 website views. And we say, as you can see so far, because we think we are a network that continually can grow and support people throughout their early career to ensure that every teacher can thrive and not just survive. You can get involved in our network in a number of ways. You can sign up as a member and you get access to all details regarding events and support. This event, we've opened a bit more to people who aren't signed up as members yet. Some of our events in the future might not be able to be opened up as much just because of the platforms that we're using. So if you're not signed up as a member, please do. You can also volunteer as a network leader. It's a small role that can really enhance your employability. We're all volunteers, and we're really fortunate to have a great team of volunteer early career teachers who are going to be leading our network from next year. So if you are interested, please do get in contact with us as well. You can write blogs for our website. Anything education based will be happy to be published. And you can also get involved in our social media, which we will share throughout the presentation, so please do get involved. But we would say do check your spam and junk folders for email, because some of the emails for some reason have been going to them instead of your actual inboxes. We are very much a values-based network, which you can see at the bottom, and tonight's event is very much based about responsibility, sort of taking the responsibility for supporting each other in developing professionally and developing within your career as well. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and explain how this evening is going to work. So we've got, like I said, we've got 4 fantastic speakers. Unfortunately, Christala Jamil, who was supposed to be joining us, fortunately can't tonight, but she's going to pre-record her session that she was going to do, which was all about, from a head teacher's perspective, what she looks for in applications and in interviews. But Ben's going to heavily talk about the interviews at the end. But Christala will record her session and we will share that with you afterwards. What we're going to do is each speaker will introduce themselves. Some people have used slides, which we'll share, and we'll share with you after the event as well. Some haven't, which is obviously either way is fine. And what I do ask is if you could please include any questions that you have in the chat throughout the presentations, and we'll do the big Q&A at the end. Each speaker is going to talk for about 10 minutes or just under, and it will really help if you could put your questions throughout, just so that we can field the questions and ensure that we direct them to the best person possible. The event is sort of structured so that we take you through that recruitment process. So it's going to start with Lucy talking about what to look for in an advert and on a pre-visit from a candidate's perspective, right through to Ben, who's an executive head teacher, who's going to share what he looks for as a head teacher in interviews. So we've sort of very much tried to get a balance of experience on tonight as well. If you do have any problems accessing the webinar throughout, please contact us on one of the social media platforms, which we will share as a banner with you shortly. But first, I'm going to now hand over to Lucy, who is going to talk about the pre-visit and advert element of the interview process. So Lucy, I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll share the slides in a moment.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm Lucy, I'm a year 2 teacher. I've been teaching for 5 years now, and I've applied for about 10 jobs so far. It was quite hard to get my first job, so hopefully some of the things that I talk about tonight will help you. So the first kind of step is to have a look at the website. So once you find that you've seen a job that you like the look of, have a look on the website, because that's a school's way of showing off what they're about. If you have a look on the class pages, you can kind of see what the learning goes on in the school, and you can have a look at the staff list to see, because if you're somebody who's maybe living away from home, has just finished uni, and is kind of wanting to make a life for yourself somewhere, then maybe going into a school where you haven't got things in common with the people that you're working with isn't a great thing to be doing. So have a look at like the staff page and have a look to see if they're like the similar kind of ages to you, or if there's anybody there you think you might have in common. I know that's like a really little trick, but I thought it was helpful. Have a look at the values and ethos. This is one thing that is really important. If you find yourself thinking actually, and looking at the website and thinking actually that what they're about isn't really what I'm about, then there's no point in applying for the job. So yeah, I'd just say that. On the school website, you'd find the Ofsted report, and I think this is a really big help when you're applying for a job, because you can look through their strengths and see what they're about and why you should work there, really. So in my last job that I applied for in May 2019, on the Ofsted report, it mentioned the fact that all the teachers were proud to work there and that staff well-being was high. And I thought that's a school that I really want to work for. And I mentioned that to the head teacher when I went to walk around as well, and I said, your Ofsted report really shone out to me when I was looking for jobs. So yeah, have a look at that, but then also have a look at the Ofsted report, because it will help you write your statement when if you do choose to apply for that school. So yeah, I said have a look at the class pages, see what type of learning goes on, see what their curriculum's about, see what's expected of you, of the children, and you'll get a good feel for it on the website. And then on a visit, I think the biggest thing that I could tell you is just to be yourself. As I said, I got my last job in May 2019, and I was there for an hour having a look around the school. Obviously, it's different now because of COVID, and you might not be able to go and look around a school. But even on a phone call or on a virtual tour, try and be yourself, because that's the person that you're trying to show off. You should be confident in your abilities. You've got this far, so just believe in yourself and kind of go with what you think that you should be saying and what you know about yourself. So if I give an example, I was asking my head teacher about their after school activities, and because I really like music and I ran the school choir at my last school, I said to her about wanting to do it at my new school. And I think the fact that I was so passionate about it meant that she then saw that passion and then wanted me to like join her team, because she saw the passion I had, even if it wasn't for every like subject on the curriculum. The fact that she could see that I was passionate about something, I think she liked, so that was good. Go with a gut feeling. I've been to look around schools before and just really not felt it. So if that's you, don't apply for a job just because there's a job going. Yeah, definitely. And then also ask about an NQT mentor. I'm guessing that most of you are trainees, so you'd need to know who your NQT mentor is going to be. They've probably done it before, so it might be good to ask while you're speaking to them or going to look around the school who your NQT mentor would be, and just to say hello, because then again you can get a feel for if you're going to get on with them or not, which is important, because they're going to be your kind of number one support in your first year of teaching. And then when you're applying for a job, it's really important to sell yourself. So the first thing that I would do is look through the Ofsted report and look through the person specification from the job pack, and write down everything that they've got on there, and then write down next to it what you've done to show that you've done that. And then you literally are hitting all of those targets. I've been told before that head teachers and SRT literally look at the person specification and look at your statement and tick off. And so if you can do that's amazing. So then, yeah, read the Ofsted report again and then discuss your strengths in relation to those things that are on there. So, for example, if they are working on their maths in greater depth and you really enjoy teaching maths and you taught it in a certain way during placement that brought out the best in those greater depth children, then mention that, because then they can see that you've actually bothered to look at the Ofsted report and are thinking about what you can bring to the school. Use the school ethos or motto in your own statement. I think that shows that you're well suited. If you can say that you are hardworking and use your initiative, and that's what's in their school motto, then you kind of show that you are ready to work in a partnership with them, and also kind of be one of the team, but also a member of the school community with the kids on board as well. So then go discuss your interests, what you really enjoy doing in your personal statement, because that's again going to show off your passion for things. And make it 2 pages or less, because I've been told as well, like once they finish reading 2 pages, they stop reading because they get so many applicants. I used to live in Bristol, and I was told that I was one of 110 applicants. So if they've got that many pages to read, then your statement really needs to shine. So yeah. And then just sell yourself, be yourself when you go to look around the school. Write down everything that you can to show off what you're about and your strengths and what you can bring to the team. So yeah, good luck. I hope it goes well. I know it's really strange times to be applying for a job, but it's a really exciting time, and once you get there, it's amazing.
Thank you, Lucy. That was really, really good, and a great way to start the opening of our event. So thank you. And obviously, if you've got any questions for Lucy, then please pop them into the chat. Thank you to those of you who've put the chat in already. What I'm just going to say before I bring Meg in, who's our next speaker, is I'm going to share on the screen the different hashtags and social media platforms that we use. That if you want to share anything like your reflections from tonight's event, then please do so. So thank you, Lucy, again, that was brilliant. So what we originally had planned was we was originally going to have Kristala, who's going to present on sort of what Lucy has just touched on about making that application, but from a head teacher perspective. So like I said, Kristala unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. But what we're going to do is we're going to now go on to Abed Ahmed, who is a secondary teacher, and he's going to talk through what the interview process might look like. One thing that we're aware of, and there's been lots of questions about it already, is about COVID and the impact COVID has. But one thing that we talked about when we all talked before we went live was about the importance of remembering that whilst the format might have changed, the expectation is still the same, and I'm sure Abed will draw on that in his presentation. So thank you, Abed, for agreeing to present. I'm going to go off screen now, so if you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll share the slides.
Sure. Okay, guys. Thank you for attending these sessions, and I'm pretty sure that you will all find it very useful. First things first is that I do struggle to say my name, so unfortunately, that's because I do have a stammer, which is a speech impairment, and which means that unfortunately I can't speak as fluently as 99% of the people in this world. So I do appreciate if you be a bit more patient with me. I've been a teacher since 2015. I'm currently a head of department, and I have had some experience in interviewing people. So hopefully I can share something with you that would be quite useful. So I'm going to start off straight away. So just before your interview, of course, there's a few things on this slide that I know that Lucy spoke about. So I'm just going to speak to them slightly briefly. So just like what Lucy said, make sure that you do research your school that you are applying for, and the best place to get that is from the school website, and you'll be surprised at the amount of things that you can find on the school website. What I would say is the biggest thing is really knowing the vision of the school. And once you do know what the vision of the school is, what a good tactic is to constantly refer to the vision of the school during your actual interview. Of course, don't do it quite blatantly. Just put it in wherever you can, and that will generally put you at a good place. Of course, do look at the previous Ofsted reports to see what the school is like, or what Ofsted have said about the school. Even though I do strongly feel there's more to a school than an Ofsted report. So don't also feel put off by a school, especially if it's requires improvement or things like that. Do not be put off from schools like that, because it could still be a very, very good school. And if you do get a chance, visit the school. Now, this second tip, I think, is very useful. I'm not sure if people do it, but I certainly do it. If you are trying to find out a bit more about the school, about what it's really like, or you need to talk to teachers that work there. And something that I've done in the past, and I still do it now, go onto LinkedIn. If you don't have LinkedIn, please do register and type in the name of the school in the search box, and it will show you all the teachers that are there. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, but now you're just talking to strangers. It's not, because LinkedIn is definitely a place where people love to network. So people won't find it weird if you connect with them. So find teachers that work there and just ask them a few questions. Probably might not want to speak to someone that might be interviewing you. So maybe speak to a classroom teacher that can tell you honest opinions. Prepare your own questions beforehand. Make sure you read your job description, because they could mention something that's in the job description that you probably didn't read, because of course job descriptions, they are quite long. So it's just a good way to refresh your memory. And if you do need reasonable adjustments or your interview, do not be afraid to put it down. So because I'm a person who stammers, I always do request reasonable adjustments during the interview, because I struggle to speak fluently. Okay, so what does the actual interview day look like before we speak about the interview? So again, it could be a tour of the school, and most times there will be some pupils that will be there with you. That's your best chance to really find out more about the school. So question the students. Students don't lie, or they'll tell you the truth. So ask what are the lessons like, what's behavior like in the school. You could get you are most likely to get a panel interview, which probably will last 30 to 45 minutes. It depends on the role. Of course, if you're applying for a much senior role, it could be longer. If you're applying for a sorry, someone's coming the way, a classroom teacher job, it could be shorter. I think my first classroom teacher interview was literally 15 to 20 minutes, and thankfully I did get the job. There could be a people interview, probably not likely, but it can happen, where the students will ask you questions, and there could be the head teacher listening in. Part of the interview day would obviously most likely be teaching a lesson or part of a lesson. When you do that, please plan more than usual. There was once that I did interview a teacher whose lesson, but I didn't interview the teacher, but I was part of the process to observe the teacher, and he finished about 10 minutes before the lesson, and I was like, so make sure you do plan more than usual, even if it's just for 20 or 30 minutes, because you will get a chance to explain your lesson plan as well. And guys, always prepare for the worst case scenario. Who knows, on the day the internet might not be working and you can't log in, or the computer's not working. So just plan something just in case. So maybe print out your slides that you were planning to to use. Of course, now that we are in a pandemic, if you are doing an interview online, I did one just a couple of weeks ago, you are most likely to be told to just explain a lesson rather than teach a lesson. Or you might be told to do an interview. I mean, course you're doing an interview. You might be told to do a presentation. Of course, that's most likely to be for those that are applying for jobs with the teaching and learning responsibility. There might be like an informal discussion. So if you're applying for a classroom teacher role, or you might have an informal discussion with the head of department, make sure that you know your stuff, that you know your subject, and prepare some questions. And finally, there might be something on group discussions. I've not seen group discussions a lot, but it's something that could happen. Now, what about subject-specific tasks? Now, this tends to be for people that apply for jobs that have a teaching and learning responsibility. By the way, guys, I hope that you appreciate the gifs that I'm using on these slides. Okay, so what does a subject-specific task look like? And like I just said, it's mainly when you apply for a role with a teaching and learning responsibility. So you could be given a data task. So you're given some data, and you might be given 20 minutes, look at the data, just come up with a summary of it. And it could be things like looking at the differences in attainment between certain groups, SEN students, people premium students, and they might tell you, okay, can you look at this data and can you talk about what you would do, what students you would target, what intervention are you to put in place, things like that. You could be told to prepare some sort of presentation, and they might give you the specific topics. So they might say to you, oh, can you talk about how you might improve teaching and learning in the school? Can you talk about how you might encourage more students to read? Can you talk to us about how you might improve numeracy in the school? Okay, and they might just give you 20 minutes. Here you go, a plan it. You might get a scenario-based task, and I've had that in the past. Previously, I did apply for a lead practitioner role, which was in charge of teacher trainees, and they gave me a scenario-based task where I had to deal with a very difficult classroom teacher, and then I had to do a role play where I had to talk about what they're doing, and what they need to do to improve. And they just wanted to see how I would manage a situation like that. So again, these are mainly for jobs where it's a teaching and learning responsibility. You might be told to mark an assessment, a piece of work. What feedback would you give? And you might be told to observe a lesson. And again, what feedback would you give? What went well? And things like that. But if you are applying for classroom teacher roles, I can assure you 99% of the time, you probably won't be given a subject-specific task. You will be expected, likely, to talk through a lesson or teach a lesson. Okay, so what about the actual interview? Now, previously I spoke about reasonable adjustments. So what I do is I tell every job that I apply for, what I write is, can you let me taking some notes in the interview? Now, so many people think that you shouldn't do that, and it's an unwritten rule. If you think about it, interviews should never be about memorizing. Now, I'm a person who stammers, and I stammer a lot. Probably not right now because your stammer does fluctuate, but during an interview, I genuinely cannot get my words out. So what I tell them is, can I take some flashcards? And I lay the flashcards on the table, and I look at them. There's nothing wrong with that, because I'm not just reading from a script or nothing like that. A second reasonable adjustment that I tell interviewees, interviewers, can you give me about 10 to 15 seconds to think about my answer before I do answer it? I think we're so used to thinking that we need to respond instantly, because if we don't, that means that we don't know what we're talking about. That's not true, okay? And of course, you're very nervous, and you might need 5 to 10 seconds to really calm and think about your answer before you do it. There's no harm in mentioning that in your application. Research, obviously, interview questions online. There is loads. There is a bank of it. So go on to Twitter. There's so many people in there that will do for you. They will give you some questions. During your questions, try and refer to latest research. That just shows that you are keeping up to date with what's going on in the teaching world. And it does make you look good, because it shows that you are willing to go further and try and find out what research is telling you about the job. If you are applying for roles with teaching and learning responsibilities, or you might want to like always refer to something that you have thingy like implemented, what was the like impact of what you like implemented. And even if you're not applying for a job with the teaching and learning responsibility, and if you're a classroom teacher, you can say that you started a chess club or a certain club, and then always talk about the impact that had. That shows that you are constantly reviewing what you're doing, and really always looking to improve. Be concise. Interviewers, they are giving you a score, believe it or not. I've been part of interviews, and we so like each person in the panel, they have all the questions, and they're told to give a score like out of 5 per question. Okay, so that's not me trying to scare you, but I'm just trying to tell you what the reality is. So try and be concise. I was in an interview once where the person just kept speaking and speaking, and I generally just forgot what they were even talking about. So try and be concise as possible. Don't be afraid to like ask them to reorder the question. But if they give you a question and you generally can't answer it, just say, is it okay if you come back to that question later on? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. At least that gives you a bit of time to think about it at the same time. Once questions are finished, and they usually say, do you have like anything else to say? Do you mention like all the other things that you didn't get to mention? I think during like an interview, we tend to forget quite a lot of things. So if you get a chance right at the end, just sit yourself and say the things that you wanted to say but you didn't. What questions can you say near the like once your like interview is finished? Make sure you do like say some questions. A good one that I say a lot is, what does success look like in my role? That way you can actually know if you're obviously doing a good job or not, and you know exactly what they expect of you. And then put the question back to them, so as if you're the like interviewer, and tell them what makes you as a school different to like other schools in the local community. And I'm sure they'd be very surprised by that question, and they will try and sell their school to you. Okay, guys. I think that's the like end of my like interview. Just a quick note that I do raise a lot of awareness for stammering, and I do support a lot of kids who stammer. So if you work in a school and you do work with students who stammer, do follow me on Twitter, because it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And I do teach maths as well. Well, that's my main job. Okay, guys, thank you for your time, and I hope you found it useful.
Thank you, Abed. That was absolutely great. It was really great to hear the process from beginning to end. I thought it was really good, so thank you. Someone's asked about if the slides will get shared afterwards, and yes, we'll send them out to everyone. So now we're going to go over to Meg, who is an NQT. And the reason why Meg's going to talk is all about online interviews, because that was something that people were quite nervous about. So Meg, over to you. Sorry, Meg, you're on mute.
Well, that's embarrassing, isn't it? Hello, everyone. My name's Meg, second time. I am an NQT in Year 4 in a lovely two-form entry school in Surrey. I did my PGCE last year at the University of Wales, Trinity St David's, and I thought that was going to be my only year of upheaval, but here we are. And during my PGCE, I had an online interview for the role that I am currently in. Now, I don't have any slides to share with you, so you'll just have to look at my face for the next couple of minutes, so I do apologise. So my online interview, I managed to get through a company called eTeach. So I contacted them when there wasn't too many jobs in my area and said, I am willing to move. Obviously, if you can't already tell, I'm from the south of Wales. So I was really able, luckily, to be able to move across the country to Surrey to be able to take up this role. So they had a little look around the area for me and found the job going at the school I currently work at. Now, my interview was on Zoom. It was with 3 members of the SLT, so it was with the head teacher and 2 of the assistant heads. I had my Zoom link the night before, and one of the major issues I thought about was, when do I join? Do I join straight away? Do I join on the o'clock? Because obviously when you go to an in-person interview, it's normally standard practice to get there 15, maybe even 20 minutes before, just to show that you are there, you're not going to be late, and you are ready when they need you. I ended up logging on about 3-4 minutes before. I didn't know if there was going to be a waiting room, and obviously you don't want to pop up in the middle of SLT chatting about what they're going to ask you or about a previous candidate. One of my top tips is make sure you are in a quiet space. I basically threatened my family within an inch of their lives not to disturb me while I was on my interview. Make sure you have a plain background, there's nothing behind you, just so that they are really focused on you and there's nothing to distract. Similarly to if you're doing online teaching, you don't want people seeing into your home. You don't want anything to distract from what you are saying. Check your tech the night before. Luckily, there's no technical difficulties so far, but you never know. Your Zoom might end up crashing. Your laptop might not support what they have invited you on, because they might invite you on Zoom or Google Meets or anything similar. So I would really check the tech the night before on your laptop. So moving on to the interview questions. Now, these are very, very similar to the questions that you would be asked in an in-person interview. But obviously, as I did not have the chance to show how I teach, what kind of style of teaching I have, how I present a lesson, I really made sure to put a lot of effort and time into researching the school so I could really stand against other candidates, as they couldn't see any other bits of me other than what I was telling them over Zoom. So I really made sure I looked at the school website, I looked at their Ofsted report, and that was really, really useful when they ask you questions such as, why this school? What made you want to be a teacher? Bring in the knowledge you have about their school, about their values, about their aims, about their ethos. And I also made sure that after they'd read my personal statement that I sent to them, I included things that I'd really spoken about there. So there was those links and they remembered, oh yes, Megan spoke about that in her statement. She talked about having an open classroom, a really supportive environment, things like that. Then things like, what made you want to be a teacher? Obviously, it's going to be a really cheesy answer about how I've generally wanted to be a teacher since I was 7 years old. But again, how I was so passionate, things from my personal statement, things from their ethos, and that's what makes me the teacher that I am. I really wanted to highlight how passionate I was about certain things. So I'm really passionate about literacy, and I made sure to mention my English degree there, so that they could really, really see what my passions were. I mentioned some courses that I'd done that I think could bring really, really good things into the classroom, such as, I'm sure lots of you did the free BSL course over lockdown, and said I'd really, really like that to be involved in my classroom to show I was passionate about things like inclusion. Then they ask, the normal interview questions, such as, what would you do if a child disclosed to you? What would you do if you had a concern about a member of staff? And this was a really, really good place to show how much I'd researched. Make sure you know the names of their DSLs. Make sure you know the names of their chair of governors. Make sure you know who you'd need to speak to, who their ELSA is, who their SENCO is. Because by saying, I would tell the SENCO this person, if they weren't available, I would then go to the person who's second in the DSL, which is this person. And they really, really liked seeing that I put that much time and effort into researching their school. Then I made sure that I'd read some of their policies. So for safeguarding, I mentioned things in their safeguarding policy. And then when they asked me about a time, when they asked me what if I had concern about a staff member, what I would do, I made sure to talk about their whistleblowing policy, explained that I'd read it, explained that I knew what their protocols were. So very similar to if you were in an in-person interview, you've really, really got to know your school, which is echoing what Abed and what Lucy have already said. That's a really, really important part of any interview process. Now, as an NQT, obviously I was on my PGCE year. They ask you questions. Can you tell me about a time this has happened? Can you tell me about a time this has happened? I only had one placement in my PGCE year due to COVID. And I'm sure lots of you who are on PGCs, who are on 3-year training courses, are in very similar positions, not having too much face-to-face teaching time. So what I really, really tried to do, they said, do you have a time that a child disclosed something to you? And I didn't have an example. So I thought, right, what have I used? What do I know about safeguarding? What do I know? What have I got that I can really, really explain? So I said, unfortunately, no, I haven't had fortunately, I guess, I haven't had a child disclose anything to me, but I have been on this course and this course, which highlight that where if a child did disclose something to me, this is what I would need to do. I think these courses are really, really valuable to developing myself as a practitioner, and just try and find other things that you can talk about that still kind of answer their question. Bring in examples if you have had face-to-face teaching, if you have had, for example, work as a TA, if you've done any volunteering with children at all, bring in examples they really, really want to see. Obviously, they can't see you teaching. So, for example, if they said, come in and teach a lesson, they can't see that on an online interview. So if you bring in examples, well, if they ask you, for example, how would you support more able and talented learners? Well, on my placement, I did this, or when I volunteered with these children, I did this, and this led to, or when I supported these children with SEND, or when I worked with these children with SEND. That's a really, really good way of showing what you can do without actually showing what you can do, because obviously they haven't seen you. So I was really worried about that these people aren't going to employ me. They've never even seen me teach. They maybe think, you know, I'm going to be a rubbish teacher, but here we are and I'm employed. So that's really, really good. A couple of you have asked in the chat box, I can see, and I'm going to cover that now, about taking your time in interviews. Take time to answer the question. They know that you're going to be nervous. They know that you're going to be worried, especially if you're going for an NQT interview. It was my first ever interview. They obviously knew that you were going to be a little bit nervous. So be calm. If you need to take notes, take notes. Have a glass of water. If they ask you a question and you need a couple of minutes to think about it, have a sip of water to pass the time. They don't mind if you say, oh, do you mind if I just think about that really, really quickly? They don't expect you to be able to formulate a response just like that, because they know that you are nervous. So just be calm, be yourself, and don't worry too much about what you're saying. If you're babbling on, they understand and they will see it. For the majority of their interviews, even if you're an experienced practitioner, you will still be nervous in an interview. And then at the end, any questions for us? Now, in a normal interview, these might be a little bit different to an online interview. So I asked, who would my mentor be? Obviously, as I was heading into my NQT year, who's in charge of NQTs, and what additional training can they offer me as an NQT? What would I be given in support? So they told me all about their NQT program, which was really, really lovely to see. And I knew straight away, this is a really lovely school who was really supportive towards their NQTs. I also asked, if I was to be successful in September, if we were still on remote teaching, what is your protocols? What would I be doing? That really lets me see what their response to COVID is, how they've managed it currently, and then obviously heading into this lockdown, I already knew what their plans loosely were. I knew that I was going to be live teaching. I knew that I wasn't going to be in school. And I knew what they were kind of planning. So when Boris made his announcement, it wasn't too much of a mad rush to get everything ready, because we kind of already knew what our school was planning. And our head teacher is really, really open about what they plan as well. So asking things about COVID, how can that kind of affect your role? That's a really, really good question to ask, especially as an NQT, because you don't know how is it going to affect your NQT year. Could it be extended? Would you still be expected to have observations? That kind of thing. And finally, have fun with it. It's an interview. You're there because you are a passionate teacher. You want to teach. You want to show them that you want to teach the children in their school, and they know that. They know that you're not going to come to an interview and not want that job and not be passionate about the children. So just really, really good luck to you all, because it's really difficult to secure your first teaching job, and you're all doing amazing by training through COVID already. So I hope that really, really helped you.
Thank you, Meg. That was brilliant. Thank you, and thank you for having addressing some of the questions in the chat. It was really good. So thank you so much. Right. So the last speaker we've got, who has been waiting patiently, is Ben Hulme, who's an executive head teacher of 2 primary schools in Kent. So we really appreciate Ben giving his time as well. And Ben's going to sort of focus on the interviews from a head teacher's perspective as well. So I hope you find that really useful. So Ben, thank you very much, and over to you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. And thanks also to the other panelists that have been speaking this evening. It's really refreshing to hear different perspectives on people's take on interviews and that whole application process that some of you are going through now. Firstly, if you've been in school today or you're on placement and you're supporting online, well done for coming tonight. You are probably very tired and you've done a brilliant job to get this far. So well done. I recognise that this is a really difficult time for you to be applying for jobs in a very uncertain market. So well done for coming along tonight and hearing some different information. And the other panellists have got it absolutely spot on. In terms of the advice that they've given you when you're looking at schools, when you're looking on the websites, when you're talking to people as you're doing a tour, and when you're in an interview as well. So really do take that advice and listen to it, because they've given you that really, really well. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts from a head teacher's perspective. So I've been a head teacher now for 5 years, and I started as an executive head in September. I've got 2 primary schools. One is in North Kent in Swanley, which is 111 children in total across 4 classes. And the other is a 1-form entry school about 10 minutes away from Swanley. And both are obviously closed now at the minute, apart from key workers and vulnerable children. So I have some experience of interviewing NQTs, experienced teachers, leadership positions, teaching assistants, and a whole variety of people in between. So hopefully what I say might be of some use to you. So the first thing to say is that the other panelists, when they say get to know the school, they've got that really right. Head teachers like hearing about their schools and what you've done to prep for coming to their school. So the more work you can do on looking at their websites, on learning about things that they do at their school that makes them special, that makes us feel really good, and we like hearing about that. So I've put the perfect interview there, but I really do want to say there is no perfect interview, and it more so now than ever, it is all about you interviewing the school as much as them interviewing you. You are starting on a massive journey with this potential school, and the more information you can get from them during interview, the better you will feel about the process that you go through. So there's 5 things that I really look for when it comes to interview. And this will be the same for whether it's on Zoom or whether it is in person on face-to-face. So the first thing is appearance. So how is this person dressed? Have they come ready for interview? Or if they're on Zoom, does it look like they're still in bed, tucked up in their pajamas with a blanket over them? So really think about that how you're coming across with your appearance. The second is passion. Are they passionate about what they do? And some of you, I can see in the chat box, are talking about how difficult it's going to be when you haven't managed to be in front of class or in placements or being able to link any questions in with that. But we can get your passion from what you're saying. We can hear it through your voice, through your answers, through the way that you're interacting with people on the panel and with the head teachers themselves. So really think about how your passion for what you want to do has come across. You've taken a long time to get to this point. Not just the application and the interview day and the teaching if you're doing that, but also the 3 or 4 years you've put into qualifying. If you've done a PGCE year on top of that, you are obviously passionate about becoming teachers, and this is your chance to show that. The third thing I look for is experience. So what experience have you got? And although that's going to be difficult for some of you if you haven't been on placement, how can you link what you're saying into an experience that you've had either in class or on some placement or in a previous life? And that's a really good thing to try and do, to show how you can use your skills to really influence your placement at that school or within class. Number 4 is that eagerness and that keenness to learn. You know, are you really keen to make sure that you can do everything you can to make sure your first year is a success? How can you add to that teaching team? What can you add to that group of people that makes your placement there and your position there as exciting, as enjoyable as it can be? And what can you offer the school that makes them and you the place for them? And then number 5, I really look for people that in effect interview me. So as I said earlier, more so than ever, this is a chance for you to really get to grips and to find out about the school. So what do they do for well-being and workload? How do they support newly qualified teachers or recently qualified teachers in their first or second year? What expectations do they have for taking work home or for staying late at night or working at the weekend? Really take the time to ask those questions, either in that tour or in that interview. And one of my teachers at St Paul's in Swanley Village, we had a very long tour when we were able to tour, and she was really unpicking those questions and asking the question that you really want to know. If you go home and you've still got a question, come back and ask it, or email the head teacher and ask for that information that you're looking for. Don't go and regret not asking that question. And really go beyond the learning. So as I said earlier, what do they do to support you for your well-being? Where does that support come in terms of a mentor, in terms of different colleagues in different year groups? What has the school got in place to support you? Because that is really, really important, not just for that first year or that second year, but actually for those first 5 years that we're looking at people being in their early career programme. Ask about the career development. So what plans have they got in place for teachers that are ambitious or want to step on? You know, what support can they give you? So at St Paul's, we have people in on their NQT year. In their second year, they shadow a core subject. And in their third year, they get a chance to lead a core subject either on their own or alongside someone else. And that plan is really clear from the start of their time with us. Another top tip from me is if you get a chance, ask the TAs some questions, whether that's on the tour or whether that's on interview day, because they don't get paid enough to lie about what the school's like. They'll tell you as it is, and they're the people that you'll be working most closely with in and out of your classroom. So I know there's been a couple of points on some of the interview questions. One of the ones that will always come up is around safeguarding and the process for what you would do if a child disclosed something to you. So even if you haven't had that chance to be with children in the class because of COVID, you just refer back to the safeguarding policy. So it will be about listening to the pupil, never offering to keep it a secret, and then referring it up to the designated safeguarding lead. That as an answer in an interview is adequate enough for what you need to be doing there. But the biggest thing I can say from a head teacher perspective is really find out about the school. Ask those questions that you want to know. Because for me, that shows that the person's really keen to find out how we support them and how we work as a team in everything that we do around the school. And as difficult as it is during this time, you will do a fantastic job. Now more than ever, we need new people into the profession. We need you as newly qualified teachers. And I know there's some questions and some messages in that box about how COVID will interrupt or possibly hinder your journey on this teaching career, but it won't. We need you. We need newly qualified teachers. We need your passion, your enthusiasm, and your excitement in our schools. And I'm really excited about the possibility of employing NQTs in either of my schools in September. So good luck.
Thank you, Ben. That was brilliant, and I think it really brought what everyone had been speaking about, brought it together really well. So thank you. So just before we do question and answer, just going to very quickly, just for the benefit of people watching, just explain what's going to happen after this event. So you will have already had an email. It might have gone to your junk or spam box. Please do check about a survey. Because our first event is really like your feedback. It's only 6 short questions with an option to add any questions that you have yourself. So please do. And please share your thoughts on our social media accounts, which have and tag them in and which have been popping up. We are going to do questions. If there's anything you wanted to ask, then please media accounts. And just, you know, about future things that are happening with our network. We'd really love some more people to volunteer and step up as network leaders from September 2021 to really help steer our network. There's some key areas that we're looking for, as you can see there on the slide, but also obviously it's not just trainee teachers, people who are aspiring to teach, newly qualified teachers, teachers in their first 5 years of teaching are more than welcome to come on board, so please do let us know. We are, for those of you who are in your final year of teacher training or on a 1-year teacher training course, we are going to be doing a preparing for teacher training virtual event similar to tonight, but in June, July, and we'd love that to involve people like you who are going through that process. So please, if you're interested, please complete the other Google form that has been sent to you as well. And we also have another event in February, which was sent out via our e-newsletter. So what we're going to do now is do the question and answer. So thank you for those of you that have put questions into the chat. And I've gone through some of them. Luckily, our fantastic speakers have started to answer some of them in their presentations when they saw things come up in the chat. So I'm just going to pick out some key questions and try and share them amongst all of us. So the first one I was going to ask, which I was going to ask Meg if you could answer this one, as this was something you went through. Obviously, Ben's sort of talked about it there in his presentation, but from your perspective, having some of your teacher training last year happen online rather than in school, did you feel that hindered you when you came to apply for jobs? And if not, how did you go about making sure that it didn't feel like it was hindering you?
I'll make sure to unmute myself first this time before I start speaking. So obviously it is a worry. I only had one placement and my degree was not in teaching. It was an English literature degree. So I didn't do any teacher training at all before I went on to my PGC. Obviously, it is a worry, but I really made sure that my passion really came across. And Ben said that if you haven't been teaching, you are still going to be passionate about those children. Just because you haven't been in the classroom for X amount of time does not mean that you don't want to be a teacher anymore. You still want to be passionate. You still have that coming across. And I just made sure that any experiences that I did have, I really, really drew on them and said, I have only had this experience, but these are all the skills that I got from it. This is all the experience that I've had. And just make sure that you're showing what you've done. Your passion is still going to come across, whether you've had 6 weeks of teaching experience or whether you've had 3 years of teaching experience.
Thank you, Meg. That was brilliant. Thank you. Just one that I'm going to try and answer myself, but Ben, if you could help from a head teacher's perspective, that would be great. We had some questions about a lot of positions being advertised at the moment aren't suitable for NQTs, but I assume that is because it's the time of year that it is and that more jobs will come out, because a lot of jobs at the moment are probably for an Easter start as opposed to a September start. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's right. So most of your positions that are advertised now may be a middle leader position, or knowing that NQTs won't be quite finished yet, or ready for a start date until September. So yeah,
that's great. Thank you very much. Lucy, if I could come to you with a question. We had a lot of questions, which I know lots of people have touched on, but any tips on overcoming nerves in an interview situation that you have?
I think that's a hard one, because I was terrible at interviews, my first couple of interviews, and it gets better with time. And once you know yourself as a teacher, and once you're confident in your ability, then you're going to come across better. So I'd say go into an interview acting like you know it all, because if you act it, then you're going to start feeling it, and you might not know it all. You're still an NQT or training or whatever, but if you act confident, then that's going to come across. So I think, yeah, and definitely practicing the questions as well. Have a Google on some interview questions and just go through them all, like make notes, maybe get somebody to practice with you, just so that you can answer those questions quickly. And to be honest, from my perspective on interviews, most of the questions, if they ask you 10 interviews, I'd say 6 or 7 are always the same. They're just worded differently. So if you have got an answer to a similar question that you can just kind of reel off, as well as like give examples, then you'll be fine.
That's great, Lucy. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if Abed's there or not because I can't see him. So, oh yeah, he is brilliant. Thank you. One question I wanted to ask you is about making your application stand out. Someone said they applied for a job last year and there was over 200 applicants. So, what could you do to make yourself really stand out?
Wow, that's a lot of applicants. That is 200. So what I would say is, of course, you need to try and show off your ability as much as you can. Try and relate to a lot of your experiences that you have. Of course, people that do like interview, but they do want to see that you do have some sort of experience. Of course, for like NQTs, or they know that they won't have that many, but it's talk about what you've learned from your experience if you don't have that much, and they want to see that you are very passionate about your subject. I think that would be the number one thing. Are you passionate about your subject? Because if you are passionate about your subject, or you're more likely to go above and beyond in your role, and if you are very passionate about your subject, or you're more likely to try and plan good lessons. And again, I think the best leaders were like originally very good, passionate subject teachers. I generally do think that. So try and talk about that quite a lot. If you have, of course, done things in the school, like whole school things that you run a club. I know that I've mentioned that before. If you have done things like that, do mention it. I'm just trying to think of other ways that you can stand out. Again, do show them that you are keeping up to date with what's going on in terms of teaching and learning. If you've not read like any teaching and learning books, it doesn't matter, but try and mention a couple of articles that you've read that you found quite useful, and just show them that you do know what you're talking about. I hope that does help.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you.
Ben will probably have.
Ben, from your perspective, what you look for to make people stand out?
No, I would just say one of the first things I throw out is anything that hasn't got capital letters in, and you'll be hugely surprised at the amount of applications that come in that are poorly punctuated or don't have capital letters in. And the other thing, for the very first application I ever did as an NQT, I put the wrong head teacher's name on the cover letter and wondered why I didn't hear back from that school. So just make sure when you're looking at a number of schools and you're applying for a number of posts that you put the right details in, otherwise you're not going to hear from them.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ben. So another question was, do you take documents or evidence to interview? Is that something you'd recommend or something you've done? Lucy, I don't know if you want to answer that one.
So it was something that I'd built up over the last kind of few years of teaching. I made myself a portfolio, but you could definitely do it from placements that you've got. And I went to interview and they didn't ask me to see anything. I just brought it with me anyway. And so at the end of the interview, and they said, is there anything else that you want to ask us? And I was like, yes, I've got this portfolio, please let me show it off. And then it just gives you more opportunity to sell yourself. And I think it's a brilliant thing to share with head teachers, because it's basically you showing what you're capable of, showing your strengths, showing what you can bring to the team, and they're not going to be annoyed at you for like wanting to spend more time talking to them about it. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you. That's great. My head teacher on my final placements, she said always go with something. She says the only thing don't do is don't rock up with your massive placement folder and expect them to look through it. Just go with something that you've sort of streamlined and put together. So that was something I found really useful. So thank you. Most of the other questions that we've had have been answered in some way or another. I didn't know if, just as a final thing, if each person, we wanted to go around each person, if there was anything you wanted to add as a sort of parting bit of wisdom, if you like. So I don't know if Meg, if there's anything else you'd like to add, and we'll start with you.
Don't stress. Every other trainee is in the same boat as you. COVID does not just exist in your university and in your life. Everyone is feeling the same stress. Everyone is worried. Everyone is not completing placements. It really does not matter. As long as you show how amazing that you are and what a wonderful teacher you can be, you'll be absolutely fine.
Thank you, Meg. Abed, I don't know if you want to share yours.
Yeah, I think just on top of what Lucy said is that I've seen a lot of teachers in Facebook groups and a lot of trainees. They're talking about how stressed they are about missing out on so much in the training year and missing out so much in the lacking 2 year. And I've seen a few comments where some were saying that they've not even had that much time even teaching physically. And I just want to say that teaching online is also a very big skill. So don't feel as if that you're not developing. So we're all in this together. So many teachers have been teaching for 40 years. This is something new to them as well. So try not to worry as much. And I can promise that once you do get into your first job, you'll start to quickly pick things up, because I know that you've not received a full year when you were doing your PGC, and trust me, there will be a school that will be the right school for you.
Thank you, Abed. That's great. Ben?
Yeah, I would just say take your time to find the right school for you. That first year is so key for you to get right. And if you're in the wrong school, if you're not being supported well enough, then that year quickly becomes really difficult. So don't take the first job that you apply for if it's not the right school. Just take your time. Something will come.
Thank you. That's great. And last but by no means least, Lucy?
Yeah, definitely find the right school for you. It took me 5 years, and I'm finally feeling like I'm so confident in the school that I'm in now. I knew that it was the school for me when my head teacher
I don't know if anyone else can hear Lucy, which seems to have frozen. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I just say go with your gut, because you do have to take your time to find the right school, and be confident, be yourself, and everything happens for a reason.
Thank you. That's great. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's turned up, for the 4 of you for giving up time of your evening when you've probably spent a lot of time in front of screens over the last couple of weeks. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. And I think what a great way to have our first ever virtual event for our network. So I think it's absolutely fantastic what we've been able to do this evening. So thank you. I'll just reiterate to everybody again, those of you attending, please do check obviously your spam and junk boxes for any emails from us and from the surveys, because we're volunteers who are working full-time or training full-time, and we just would really appreciate your feedback to make sure we have the best support for you. If there's any other questions you have, please do email them to us and we will get in contact. But for now, have a lovely evening, the rest of your evening. Thank you very much, and take care, and good luck to us all for getting jobs. Thank you, and bye.